It is time to issue apologies to one member of the Milwaukee Bucks. And are you interested in checking out the yard sale down the streets? We dig into that coming up next.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. The number one sports podcast network out there. Our appreciation to each and every one of you. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right. Last night's game wasn't like what put it over the top. It was just another check in that column, Camille. I don't know if the Bucks win that game against the lowly Dallas Mavericks, who then, 12 hours later, fired Nico Harrison. I don't know if they win this game if not for Kyle Kuzma, who had a stretch of, 8 straight points that he scored?
7 or 8, yeah.
He was the only one, and you could see a couple of times, too, when the ball was sticking and shots weren't falling, and then Kuz was just like, all right, I'm attacking. I'm going to the paint, and I'm finishing. He has, at the risk of sounding too hyperbolic here, he's been awesome this year for the Bucks. And I know it's only 11 games so far, but man, where the discourse was, and rightfully so, he was not good last year. Where things were then to where they are now, we speak of Nico Harrison and the got to see the vision and trust things out here. Well, this is what we heard from John Horst, not, just trust the process and see the vision. But no, we traded specifically for Kyle Kuzma because of what we think he can do for us. We all laughed at it. We all mocked it. We said, yeah, right, this was to get under the second apron. And maybe there is a half and half to that. But so far, this looks like the vision that they had.
It does. It does. And it feels like a situation where it just took a little time for Kyle Kuzma to understand what it was that the Milwaukee Bucks were going to be looking for out of his play. Because when you go from a situation like Washington, where you have free reign to do whatever it is you want when you have the basketball in your hands, and coming to a situation in Milwaukee where they're trying to compete for some championship basketball, you are no longer the star guy here. There's another guy that we're aligning all of our ships around in Giannis.
Ryan Rollins.
And now Ryan Rollins. But you have to play a role. And that's the part about Kuz this season that I've been most impressed about. He has really been, as they've been saying, hey, always be a star in your role. And he has done that. I think it was after the Chicago game, he mentioned, I know my pathway to being on the floor. And it starts with me playing some really good defense. And I'm trying to play. I want the minutes. So I know what I have to do. And he's been committing to that. I know some people hate hearing shot profile and shot diet, but you are seeing a lot less frustrating shots from Kyle Kuzma than you did last season. Now, he still throws a couple of them up every so often, but more often than not, he is really trying to either finish at the rim or take a three and make that. He is being very quick with his decision-making. He's been even better with the playmaking, I think, even though the numbers don't necessarily shout that out, but just the ball movement when he's on the court. And then not to mention the defensive effort, which we saw the flashes of last year of Kuz is actually pretty decent defensively, and he's been committing to being that guy for this team. And you can see all of that work really paying off early on in the season for Kuz.
Defense has consistently been good since he's come to Milwaukee. I would say even, I don't know how far I want to take this one, but even his passing and to some extent the basketball IQ has been much better than I anticipated so far this season. You mentioned too, Camille, he was allowed to basically do whatever he wanted on the court in Washington. He was allowed to do whatever he wanted off the court too. Need I remind you of that pink sweater that he wore into the arena? But yeah, I mean, that was one of the big adjustments. And I think a lot of people tried to, again, ironically enough, with the Mavs comp, make the comparison to PJ Washington last year of like, oh, well, this was another guy who was playing for really bad teams in Charlotte and never really got to experience winning culture and get in the playoffs. And the moment he did, wow, look what he did for the Mavericks. There was probably a lot more hope in that than actual comps for anybody that brought it up. But I think that's largely what we're starting to see this season. And, you know, you and I talked about this before. I think Frank has mentioned it too. A lot of credit goes to Kyle Kuzma. You
Yeah.
know, I know Marcus and Chris talked with his trainer in the lead up to the season about the work that he was doing and just how Kyle Kuzma was getting his body right and mentally how he was going to be attacking this season. But, you know, for all those things too, the approach of a guy that developed a reputation as a chucker and some shades of Michael Beasley as well with the personality and just the I'm out here to score type of mentality, you know, to basically abandon that and just say, I'm going to assume my role as a role player and I'm going to come off the bench. I'm going to, as Doc loves to say, get over myself and have no ego here and just play into this team concept. We still got 71 more games to see it and hopefully more than 5 or 6 games in the postseason as well. But I mean, so far, you couldn't have asked for anything more.
No, and even your point about the bench too, where that was a point of conversation. Like, will the Bucks really go that route with Kyle Kuzma and let him come off the bench if that makes the most sense for this team? And that's the route that they actually went in. And as mentioned, Kyle Kuzma has been pretty good in that role for this team. And I give him a lot of credit for it. And ultimately, what we've gotten so far is I think what the hope was in the offseason of like, hey, the hope is that Kyle Kuzma plays better for one or two reasons. One, because it just helps out the Milwaukee Bucks. Two, it's a contract at a salary amount that could be movable. But at this point, I'm more interested in just seeing what Kyle Kuzma can continue to do, which is not something I expected to say necessarily at any point during the season. But he's been very valuable, and especially with this Taurean Prince injury now, with him being out indefinitely, I think a Kyle Kuzma becomes even more important to the Bucks because he's shown so far that he is one of your wing players with size that you can play at that 3 spot. We've seen him
Did you
also
say
be that.
one of as in there's multiple?
You know what? Taurean Prince is out, so that's that on that. Amir Coffey, I've said it before, but like when he comes in the game, I don't really notice him. And I don't mean that negatively or positively. It's just like a minutes eater at this point where it's just happening in the background. So
Yeah.
I'll give Coffee a little credit because he's in the rotation as well. Taurean Prince is now out, but like that puts a lot, I think, on Kyle Kuzma's shoulders going forward too.
Yeah, well, I mean, since you bring it up, that's the other big news of the week or past couple of days in Taurean Prince. I talked about it a little bit on my radio show last night. If you just read between the lines, it doesn't sound good for the Bucks. So what does that mean for a guy like Kyle Kuzma, for a guy, you know, like Taurean Prince as well, and for this team as a whole at the position where the Bucks, we knew coming into the season, were most vulnerable. And now already, 3 weeks into the season, you take a pretty big hit. So we'll get into that conversation, what to expect from this TP news and where do the Bucks go from here, long-term and short-term. We'll discuss next on Locked On Bucks. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And time to talk to you about our friends at Rugiet. let's be real, making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. It's stress. You're tired. It happens to everyone occasionally. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body needs a little extra support. That's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. It makes it easy to get started. You connect with a board-certified doctor. It's 100% online, so there's no awkward waiting rooms and no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly directly to your door. It's fast, simple, and private, and it's handled by real doctors. All about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. So visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA and get 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA. And do not forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. All right, so Friday was when Taurean Prince Thursday last week appeared on the injury report. Friday, he did not play. And, Doc Rivers, when he was first asked about it, said he wasn't sure when it happened, if it was a game, if it was practice. The whole thing seemed very cloudy, which always kind of sets off my radar of this isn't good here. And then the update that we got eventually after dragging out for a couple of days, Monday. What day is it, Camille? Monday's press release that Taurean Prince is out indefinitely. Now, indefinitely doesn't always equate to bad. In this case, I think it is. He's out indefinitely. And the last part, too, that Prince and the team were going to, I forget the exact verbiage and wording, but basically seek alternate opinions from other doctors. That, to me, is I don't know if we'll see Taurean Prince again this season or when it will be. And I'll say this. I'm not in the prediction, or I'm not in the business of making predictions, Camille. I would be stunned if we see Taurean Prince in the calendar year of 2025.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The whole point around, no one exactly, I shouldn't say no one, but Doc Rivers saying, hey, not exactly sure when this happened, because, he played in that Toronto game, and from my understanding, he practiced after the Toronto game, but then he popped up on the injury report, and since then, he has not played, and so on and so forth with the diagnosis that he's gotten. But I mentioned this on yesterday's show with Taurean Prince. That's he's 7th most minutes per game played so far on this team. So he's been somebody who's been in the rotation. And I was curious in the game against the Mavericks of hey, it's the second night of a back-to-back. Does Doc go a little bit deeper into his bench, given the fact that guys are a little bit tired, given the fact that there is no Taurean Prince, although he hasn't played for the last couple of games? Do we see Doc kind of extend that rotation? And ultimately, he really did not too much in that game against the Mavericks. You saw Coffey in the game, and he played about what you expect him to play. Gary Harris had a little 2-minute guest appearance in the game, but ultimately, Doc went with a 9-man rotation down the stretch. And I was like, this just might mean it's more Kyle Kuzma going forward, which one area of his game so far, he's been a lot more quick to shoot those threes when he's open. He's been knocking them down at a pretty decent clip too, but it's teams are still leaving him. And that was the problem with Kuz come playoff time, where it was they didn't care how many you thought that you would make. It's kind of not this extreme, but Andre Drummond's been shooting threes now this season, and teams have just been shoot, go ahead, shoot them. The other night he was 2 or 3 or something like that from there. We don't really care. This isn't real to us. Keep shooting them. And that's something that Kuz is going to have to prove on the scouting reports and whatnot, by playoff time. So that's a piece of it where I'm interested in seeing what the 3-point shooting for Kyle Kuzma continues to look like. Because if he can knock down that 3 at a even better clip consistently with the defense that he's playing, there's going to be, I think, a lot of opportunity for him, because the Bucks do lack size on the wing, and to have someone like Kuz who can be a 3, be a 4, it's going to be helpful for this team. But it also makes me think about something that was kicked around in the offseason of like, this team is not the final version of the team that we're going to see post-trade deadline. If Taurean Prince is going to be out extended, I think I feel a little bit stronger that the Bucks might try to make a move in season to try to get some more wing help.
So, you know what's funny too is, look, I think too, we started the top here by giving a lot of credit to Kyle Kuzma. I think the same needs to be dished out to Doc Rivers too, with, recognizing and hearing the discussion that was all around, and being pretty blunt too when he was asked about it last week about the non-Giannis minutes and the bench minutes, and said, like, basically we're just trying to find what works with this group and acknowledge our bench hasn't been good this season. And then we slowly started to see him stagger Giannis and Miles Turner more and more. The other thing that has been, apparent in each of these games, I do think there's an easy way to do this if you're Doc Rivers, but he still deserves credit for doing it, is he has not been afraid to just play different groups to close the game and ride the hot hands and ride what's working. Now, it's easier to do that when you have a team that's made up like this, opposed to a team the last couple of years. If you're having difficult conversations or stepping on toes, a team with veterans like a Dame and Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, and saying, like, you guys aren't going to close the game here. We're going to go with these guys that match up better. That's more difficult to pull off, but still, he deserves credit for doing it. What surprised me is, Amir Coffey's numbers in terms of minutes, because like you, and again, I don't mean this in a negative way either, I just haven't noticed him out there. And I mean, if you would ask me how many, I'll ask you, since I'm looking at it, how many points has Amir Coffey scored this season? He's played in all 11 games.
Probably like 19 points or something like that, I would say. I wouldn't think that is too many.
You're locked in, Camille. I would have guessed like 4, honestly. It's 16 that he scored. I think you can see moments too where it's just like, you got to shoot that. And there was a couple of times, I believe, in the Mavs game where Giannis would drive, Amir Coffey's on the perimeter, he would kick to him, Amir Coffey's catches and is looking for a better shot for someone else. And it's like, no, man,
gotta shoot that.
You got to shoot it. You're going to get a lot of those. You got to start to shoot those. So curious to see that start to go up, and if it changes what you're getting from Amir Coffey. But his numbers in terms of minutes haven't really changed since, and granted, it's not a ton of time, but since the Taurean Prince absence, he's just consistently been at where he's at, pretty much, of, right around 10 minutes per game, I would say. Yeah. He, like, the couple of games where he did play more was the Toronto game, but he played a decent amount in the Knicks game. He played a decent amount in the Warriors game. Granted, there was no Giannis, so we haven't really seen a spike in those minutes. I'm curious to see if that changes, because there's one thing that's been apparent, and that's the defense. It's not been good enough, and it's been perplexing because of how things started this season with, the first 9 minutes of the season, especially, where you're looking at it and you're saying, like, all right, like, we got a defense that can move around. I know it was the Wizards, but can move around, switch, and do some things. I'm really eager to see this. Like, is Kevin Porter Jr. that vital to the defense for the Bucks, or are there some other things here? Because there's a couple numbers we have touched on before that absolutely need to improve for this group, and I think that's a big part that's anchoring the defense right now. But we'll dig into that discussion coming up next. Well, let's be real here. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing your payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in. They take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto's the all-in-one, remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place, without the hassle and no hidden fees. unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price. It means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Their automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits will save you hours every week. And just knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. 3 months free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time, that is gusto.com/lockedonnba. All right. As we sit here today, recording this Tuesday night, November 11th, do you know where the Bucks defensive ranking currently is?
I think that I know the Bucks have fallen past the midway point on cleaning the glass. I think that last I checked, they were like 21st or somewhere in that range.
Oh, 2 for 2. Yeah. Number 21.
Yeah.
In other words, we're about a third of the way there, but basically where you were when you fired a coach a couple of years ago with better defensive personnel. I think a big part of it is the defensive rebounding.
Yep.
The Bucks right now have started to make some incremental gains. It's still not good. You're 21st in defensive rebounding. It's not the barometer, but you gave a 50% offensive rebounding rate to the Houston Rockets, and they're at 41% for the year. So okay, they're going to do that, but that's the problem. You have to close possessions. And, I think I'll speak for myself. I don't know about you. I didn't give as much consideration to those things when we were talking about big wings. It was mostly just can you stay in front of guys? Who's going to be able to defend some of those type of perimeter players? And not so much you're going to need help rebounding the basketball, because through the first however many games it was, so before the Bulls game, I went back and looked at it, and the Bucks had given up 22 offensive rebounds to a guard or small forward when their starters were on the floor. I think it was 6 games that was the mark. That is not good.
Yeah.
That's where it is. And it's a couple of things. You're undersized there, but it does seem like defensively there's been kind of some ball watching, if you will, where you've got Giannis and Miles Turner contesting shots. But when that happens, somebody has to step in there and put a body on that guy, like Miles Turner's, man. Otherwise, it's just an open lane to the basket. And we saw it again a couple of years ago when Brook Lopez would have to deal with it. And it feels like deja vu all over again.
And I think the other part of it too is that the scouting report is out on the Bucks, and teams know, if you're playing Milwaukee, crash the glass, because they are weak in that particular area. So get to it. And I think the rebounding is probably the biggest thing, because as we said, it doesn't matter really how good that defensive possession was that you were on, how good that defense was. If you don't actually end the possession, you have got to get the board and go forward from there. And that's been just the area of weakness for the Milwaukee Bucks, in addition to the fact that they've been fouling a lot. So they're putting teams on the free throw line, or had been, at a pretty decent clip. So it's you got to clean that up too. You cannot be fouling teams, putting them on the free throw line, and also not rebounding along the way. So some of those margin areas of the game that people don't normally pay a lot of attention to, I think those have been 2 areas for the Bucks where it's been imperative for them to sharpen up a little bit. The fouling aspect, of course, we know part of it has been the case of just hey, we're trying to be more physical. We're trying to make sure that teams feel us, where we expect the whistle to change eventually. Hasn't happened yet. This defense has the 26th free throw rate in the league on defense, meaning that there are only 5 teams that are worse than them when it comes to allowing opposing offenses to get to the free throw line. So between the rebounding and the free throws, like the Bucks are losing on the margins a bit there. And when you don't have the superstar power outside of Giannis, where you do have a team with a lot of guys playing roles, I think it's even more imperative that you kind of tighten up in those areas on the margin, because you look back at certain games and you're like, dang, that's how we lost this one, and we could have had it, especially when you're looking around the Eastern Conference. And it's not like last year when the Bucks got off to that 2-8 start and you're like, well, the only thing kind of saving the Bucks right now is that the rest of the East is also bad right now, so they have room to catch up. This year, you look at within your own division, and there are like it's going to be one of those things
a
where
4-way tie for second right now.
Yeah, like Detroit's what, 8-2, 9-2 right now.
9-2. I mean, 4 of the top 6 records in the East are coming from the Central
Division. I wish divisions meant more in the NBA, because it'd be really cool to have the fact that it's 4 of the 5 teams right now from the Central really making noise in the East. Honestly, probably would have been 5 without the Halliburton injury, but then again, Miles Turner might not be here. Basketball butterfly effect, all that stuff. So all the wins matter along the way, and the Bucks have to tighten up in those areas on the margin.
Would not be here definitively. So look, that was my disappointment with the Mavs game, is Dallas is not a good team, as we've seen. Not this iteration of the Mavs.
They play some defense, but the offense has been trash.
Right. They're especially not a good offense.
Trash,
that I expected this to be a get-right defensive game for the Bucks, where it's like, okay, I know it's early. Let's see if we could just, based off this game alone, just kind of inch that defensive rating up to like 16 or something here. They were bad defensively for the first 3 quarters of this game. And I know it was a back-to-back. Not all back-to-backs are created equal. Like, this was not what you dealt with in Toronto. You played in the afternoon. You stayed in the same time zone. You got to Dallas at a decent hour in the afternoon, late afternoon, evening, Sunday night, and then played a game Monday night. Like, nowhere near what you dealt with arriving in Toronto at 3 a.m. and then playing a game at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock later that day. So that to me was the biggest disappointment with that game. But, you love to hear Giannis's edge, and Giannis continuing to push that good teams don't lose back-to-back games, and going as far as saying after the Rockets game, it's a must win.
Yeah.
So you like to see that, and the team adopting it as well, and how they came together to close it out and win down the stretch was certainly big. As for the Hornets, similar but different, where their defense is horrendous. Their offense has been okay. And, even by the numbers, they don't have a great record, but their point differential is pretty close to flat. Like, they are not far behind the Orlando Magic in that regard. So they've played teams tough, but offensively, I want to see more crispness, and I want to see this group look like they have a tendency to look for at least half of the game. Can we try to push that to 3 quarters in these games against the Hornets is my goal.
Especially with the injuries that the Hornets are facing too. Like, I'm not sure if LaMelo is expected to play in this one. I don't believe Brandon Miller is going to be available, and those are your top 2 scorers for the Hornets off top there. Like, seeing Concanipple is going to be fun though. The local guy coming back, all that good stuff. But here's another aspect of losing Taurean Prince that I think is kind of interesting. I was just thinking about this when talking about like margins, right? On the other side of the ball, we talked about defense, where it's been kind of disappointing, but the Bucks were very adamant about how this was going to be a team that was going to try to be top in the league when it came to 3-point shots, getting the volume up, because they know that they got the efficiency locked up. I still think they're top 3 in 3-point efficiency right now in the league. Yes, they are right in that 3, right at 3, but they are 13th in 3-point attempts. And now you're losing a Taurean Prince who, although he only averaged making like, 1.5 a game, he was your 5th, like, most volume wise 3-point shooter. Like, Gary Trent Jr. has been averaging 6.7, AJ Green 6.5 attempts per game, Miles Turner 5.5, Ryan Rollins 5, and then you had Taurean Prince at 3.5. So, and he was one of the top guys knocking him down with just his actual percentage too. So you're losing somebody who was pretty valuable in trying to make sure that this is a team getting up a lot of threes. And how do you continue to push that pace? Because you're not right now where you were trying to be when it comes to the volume of 3-point shots that you're trying to get up. So that's another area on the margins too, where I'm like, could some games against the Hornets kind of be that medicine to kind of like, hey, the defense isn't necessarily great. Might be able to get some more open looks going forward and try to get that going, but they're going to need guys to shoot too. You mentioned like with Kuz and not with Kuz, with the Amir Coffey of like, can't pass these up. We need you to let it fly.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Trent and AJ basically averaging the same amount of attempts per game here. I wonder too if we're starting to see only one of those guys can eat when they're on the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that something we need to keep in mind and maybe consider if you have to? We got to get bigger on the perimeter. Maybe the changes there of let's spread out some of this shooting. But yeah, and we've seen the numbers in terms of their 3-point attempts start to dip in the past couple of games as well. So curious to see how much that changes against the Charlotte Hornets. To your point, LaMelo and Brandon Miller are both out of the game. They've already been ruled out. Same for Josh Green, who was a big corner three hunter and had some big ones against the Bucks a season ago. Giannis is questionable on the injury report with that left patellar tendinopathy. So we'll keep an eye on that because this stretch too of 5 games in 7 days. And if you date back to the Bulls game, 6 and 9 days, that's how November has been stacked. Like you get the 2 days off and then you basically start another stretch of that too. So it's been every other day in the month of November. And then those instances where you do get 2 days off, you're making up for it on the back end with a back-to-back.
Yeah, it's been tough for him early on here in this season, just like the schedule. And we called it out immediately, like, hey, this is about to be a tough little stretch early on for this Milwaukee Bucks team. So hopefully it's one of those things for Giannis where even though he is questionable and if he does not play, we've seen the Giannis-less Bucks have a really good victory against the Golden State Warriors. I would feel that the expectations, even if Giannis is out against the Hornets, is still a victory. Like that's a team that you should be able to beat, even if Giannis is not out there.
And beat twice should be the goal.
And that might be the thing where they're actually thinking of saving him for the cup game more so than just the regular season version of the game.
Because you got 10 games left now, I believe, in the month of November. I mean, look, if you go 6-4, because there's some difficult ones in there. Another road game in Cleveland. You got the Pistons. You got the Lakers this weekend. We'll see Drew and the rejuvenated Blazers. Knicks and Heat, who are both red hot in cup games.
Man.
So there's some tough ones. If you can go 6-4 and you get through November at what, 13-8, I'll take that with what the schedule was. And with the injury, I would assume KPJ will be returning sometime shortly after that. So with all that, 13-8, great. I'll take it. If you can go 14-7, even better. So I think that should be the mindset here. Leave your thoughts on the lineups that we've seen so far from the Bucks and your honest assessment of Kyle Kuzma, what you've seen from him so far. Speaking of, Camille, I remember when this came out, but I had no interest in it because why would I have any interest in anything Kyle Kuzma? And now I think I'm going to have to search for it on the secondary market and buy it. Do you remember? You remember the pink sweater bobblehead that the Wizards made a couple of years ago? I'm going to find this.
We need to make a situation where there's some type of stipulation where if something happens, you have to wear that sweater for a day.
Well, I'm not going to buy the sweater. I'm going to buy the bobblehead.
No, I need you in the sweater, Justin. That's the part now. Now I'm seeing it.
What I should do is I should have gotten the sweater in advance of media day. So when I had like 5 or so minutes with Kuz, I'm just wearing the same sweater and see if he notices. But
like
we'll see if there's a way we can sneak the sweater in there this season. But yeah, our boy Kuz, leave your thoughts on what we've seen from him so far and your thoughts on these 2 upcoming games with the Charlotte Hornets. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.